My name is Celeste. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 24 years, and I was told that women should keep silent.
I'm a woman, and I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was told that everything would be okay as long as I remain silent. I'm still afraid of what will happen when I decide to finally speak out.
My name is Lindsay, and I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses and taught as a woman to keep silent.
My name is Kay. I was a Jehovah's Witness, and I was told to keep silent.
Growing up, I was taught that women were to be silent in the congregation. That in turn made me internalize that I had less of a voice, that my voice was less important than a man.
I'm Michelle. I was a Jehovah's Witness for 30 years, and I will no longer keep silent.
Hi, my name is Kay, and as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I was taught to keep silent.
Welcome back to my channel. Wendy Renee here. So excited to have you back. This has been a labor of love. This episode has been something that I have been putting together with a wonderful group of women. And interestingly, I'm sure that this topic is being covered this week at your local congregation. So let's get right into it. Before we begin, like always, I want to thank you so much for joining our channel, for liking, subscribing, and sharing. With every subscriber, it means there are tons more people out there who are learning that there is health and wellness and positivity and joy on the other side of high control religion and indoctrination. Let's introduce our panel.
I'm from Auckland, New Zealand. I do digital art now that I've left the cult, and I deal with a lot of the themes that we've experienced growing up with. I've been a Jehovah's Witness, or I was a Jehovah's Witness for 30 years since my mum started studying when I was 5, and I left in February this year at the age of 35. So yeah, that's me.
My name's Lindsay. I was born in. My mom got recruited and when I was like 2 years old, so it's pretty much all I've ever known. And I started the waking up process probably about 4 months ago. And Wendy, you were one of the first people that I actually talked to in the ExJw community.
Yeah, I'm happy to know you. You actually are kind of local to me, so I didn't really know many women either because I was first waking up. So really happy to have you here. This is the week where we are the talk of the meeting for service is what did the Apostle Paul mean when he stated that women should be kept silent in the congregation? And this is an age-old tale to tell in JW land. And so to have you women on this channel is such a complete honor. And I'm curious to think that after reviewing the information, what you guys think, because as we speak, there are people probably at their meetings as this video is dropping. And I wanted to consider the information and see what we come up with. So what did the Apostle Paul mean when he stated that women should be kept silent in the congregations? One thing I found interesting was that Paul is not a theologian, right? He was a man of his day. He was shaped by the patriarchal ideology of Greco-Roman Jewish cultures toward women. Granted, we can't expect him to think about things that we do today, but this is a bit much and it's very problematic. Not only in the churches, but especially for Jehovah's Witnesses.
I also love that, he was a Pharisee before, converting to Christianity. And so a lot of his mentality would be very rule-based and focused. So I think that that's a pretty good point. And how that this is a talk from a question from readers, like it's not even something that just came up organically. It's literally someone's question that they're wondering, what the heck's going on.
Right. Someone wrote in. I remember questions from readers, and somebody wrote in and was like, hey man, what did he mean? But what I find interesting about this article is that it says, here's what they think is important, appears 3 times in 1 Corinthians. Okay. Here's my question though. If they're going to focus on this, why in the same chapter did Paul also mention how women were prophesying? So if women aren't supposed to be teaching, why is he then talking about how women were prophesying? That's the paradox I can't seem to figure out. It's the most bizarre thing.
And there's the point where, one of the times, let me just find it. One of the instances, he says that everything should be conducted in a proper manner and in an upbuilding way. So are you trying to say backhandedly that it's not upbuilding when women speak? And then I think one of the other times was when people were speaking in tongues and the rest of the congregation couldn't understand them. So I'm sorry, are you saying that women speaking or teaching is likened to speaking in tongues and therefore men can't understand what we're talking about? Like, is that what you're trying to say? Because these two instances that you're comparing it to, it don't come off that great either.
It doesn't. Well, the other thing that I found interesting, and Lindsay, feel free to jump in as well. Okay. We are women having like conversations here.
Well, I thought it was interesting how he said it's disgraceful. Like, that's such a strong word to me, to say that it's disgraceful for a woman to speak in a congregation. I just thought that was over the top.
Yes.
Well, where does it end? Really? Right. So, for example, I don't know how many times when I was pioneering that I would show up to the meeting for field service and there was a baptized 12, 13-year-old boy there who would be having to take the lead because I'm a woman and I'm supposed to not tell this boy where to go in the territory. Why? That makes me less of a woman. Am I a disgrace? But right outside that Kingdom Hall, I could tell that boy who's boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Really? No. Something I found interesting was that there are some scholars who, and I'm just going to read right from the article. It says, others propose we read these verses not as Paul's instructions, but as a dialogue between Paul and Corinthian men. So in 34 and 35 would be the voice of men of Corinthians saying they insist that the women keep silent. But then Paul in 36 would say, do you think you're the only ones who have a word to share? So for all we know, this could have been a conversation between the patriarchal Corinthian men and Paul saying, whoa, wait a minute, right? So the Jehovah's Witnesses seem to paint Paul as this guy who's super demonstrative and anti-feminine, anti-women. But then again, why was he mentioning the prophetess? I don't understand. And when they would talk about Aquila and Prisca, why was Aquila mentioned first? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I thought it was interesting how also we're supposed to accept our position. So we're just supposed to accept it. And that's just the way it has to be.
Of course.
And I think he also mentioned, like, you know, that, what was it? If they want to learn something, so if women want to learn something, let them question their own husbands at home, you know, for it is disgraceful to speak in a congregation. So what, like in my case, what was I supposed to do when my father wasn't in my life and I was unmarried? How am I supposed to learn? How am I supposed to ask?
You know what? All the unmarried women, what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
And then if there's somebody, and then if there's an elder married in the congregation, you're a single woman, you can't talk to him.
And then does it get to a point where, like me asking all the older sisters in the congregation, does that turn into gossip at some point because someone might not like what I was saying? Like, you know, where does it end?
Right. I also thought it was interesting how it's our responsibility to create an atmosphere of peace. So it's all up to us.
Create an atmosphere of peace, but keep quiet at the same time. That's like saying, take your time, but hurry up. When I'm creating an environment of peace in my home, there's certain things you have to put into motion. And this is something that I found interesting too. On a number of occasions, Paul talks about, and I wrote it down, he likens himself to a nursing mother caring for her children in 1 Thessalonians. He describes himself as giving milk to babes until they take solid food. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Several times he speaks of labor pangs. When he uses these metaphors, he's validating the experience of female believers.
Sorry. My dog just barked. I'm so sorry.
Oh, hi, doggy. That's okay. So I just think he's providing an example more of collaboration than he is women to keep quiet. So I just don't understand how Jehovah's Witnesses leadership then brought all of this down to not just women keeping silent as far as teaching in the congregation goes, but I think all of us can agree that there's this subtle keep quiet in all things. When we would go to congregation gatherings, we couldn't even be the announcers, or we couldn't grab the microphone and announce. Like the brothers did everything. Even at parties, they would be in charge of the music. The women had to clean up. Of course, we were very good at cleaning
and we
up.
loved it, right?
Oh, and we loved it with a smile. Yeah. So,
With a smile.
Yeah. So I'm interested in what you guys think when it says let the women be silent, whether or not your opinions or whether your experiences have been similar, where it's not just in the congregation, but yes, in everyday life in ways that we're told to keep quiet.
I think it's definitely something that still has an after effect on me in finding my voice with ExJw activism and in life in general. I self-doubt and I think, oh, I shouldn't say this, or I'm going to come off as aggressive, even though it's more, to me, as an assertive thing. But it's something that you definitely second guess yourself moving forward, because your entire life you've been told to sit down and be quiet, and nobody wants to hear what you think. So I think that it's something that it's not just confined to the walls of the Kingdom Hall.
I agree 100%. And in my experience, I feel like it turned me into a yes person. I had to make sure that I wasn't making anybody mad at any time. I had to, I always, and I noticed it carried on not only in the Kingdom Hall, but with friends, at school, in the workplace later on as I got older. I never wanted to be the person that rocked the boat or caused a disturbance or, came off as too, combative or argumentative. It turned me into somebody that just agreed with everything. And it's so dangerous.
Yeah, I find it interesting too. I recently had a conversation with someone, and we were talking about how he thinks that this is the way it should be. He was very preemie, this is how it should be. But interestingly, in his family, his mother is a CEO. She runs a business, she runs a family, she runs multiple companies, going back and forth in and out of the country, doing things that are, she's a boss, right? And I said, so tell me why you think it's okay for her to do that, have staff, run a family, and go back and forth and make all these deals, but it's not okay for her to hold a microphone in the congregation because that is considered teaching. You talk about compartmentalizing brain power. There is not a day that goes by that when I was in there that I would think, but I have ambition, but I have drive. And that felt so wrong to me, to want to do things in my life that required gumption. That's what it required. I felt like I was never quiet enough, or I was too quiet because I didn't speak up for the lowly and the people that were being abused. And now that is one of our biggest problems as women, is that we see a lot of, and thankfully in the last couple of months, maybe the last year, we see a lot of women coming out on social media and speaking about it. But ultimately, I think one of the biggest challenges right now is that our natural inclination due to indoctrination is to just, okay. And then, right. And then we look for surrogates, right? So when I first left, this is interesting. When I first left, my counselor was a man. I was looking for external reassurance. And I love Ryan. I've had Ryan on my show, and I asked him point blank, I said, do you find that a lot of people who leave the organization, they no longer believe the elders have any authority over them, but they're looking for that surrogate, right? They're looking for that man who's going to give them the green light to go ahead. Because that's what I was when I was in there, you guys. I was like, I got to tell the elders everything. I need approval. And they wouldn't even come to me. They would only go to my husband for everything. And he's like a pilot and he's gone all the time. So he doesn't even know what's going on. And I'm like, why couldn't they come to me? So this is the problem, is it's turning into a behavioral trait for women.
I was going to bring up that it's dangerous because if you think of it in terms of situations where you're in an awkward position with a man, or where you're feeling uncomfortable because of the indoctrination, you tend to freeze up or not say anything or not feel like you can even express how uncomfortable you really are, because you are taught to just go along with everything.
And I think as well, like what you said earlier about being a yes person, we're now able to set boundaries, and to say no feels so foreign and uncomfortable as a woman that when those situations come up, even if you do say no, you spend the rest of your night, maybe even a week thinking, oh my God, I feel awful. Like I've just offended this person, even though they were doing something in the first place to make you uncomfortable. It's exactly. Like, it's not just that. one-off thing.
Exactly. And, I noticed this. It wasn't until recently, I would say within the last year, that I've actually noticed, because I believed this hook, line, and sinker, that women are not supposed to be teachers. But I noticed just my everyday behavior. When I had a boss who was a man, I would just say, okay, you're right, whatever, I'm sorry. Then even when I didn't believe it anymore, I went into the theater, and there's different directors have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with theater, but directors kind of have their own methods for doing things. So for example, I was used to the type of director who would tell me, when you say this line, pick up this hair thing, or when you say this line, pick up this pen. Like, some directors are very meticulous about how they do their blocking. And then I was in another show where another director said, freeform, do whatever feels naturally, whatever feels good to you. That's how you're going to have this character grow throughout the show. And I'm like, okay, you need to tell me what to do, because I have no idea what free form or let your freak flag fly. I have no idea what that really means.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, this is what indoctrination looks like. Sure, I don't believe it anymore, but when you're unraveling things, you notice the behaviors of indoctrination are so much more than, okay, I can't give a talk or carry mics or do sound at the meetings. And that's my issue, is so many women don't realize it, that their behaviors are so deeper outside of the Kingdom Hall.
And I think as well, like a lot of the men that leave the witnesses as well, they also don't realize. They think that, okay, well, we just got to sit there and look pretty. Like, we didn't have to do anything mentally, prepare a big talk or anything. Like, we just got to go up and do a quick little conversation with our mate and then sit back down and maybe give an answer or two, and that's that. But that's not at all how it was in our experiences.
Or how many men would lose their privileges because their wives weren't getting their field service time, or because their teenage daughters were not behaving in a fine manner. How many men lose their privileges in the congregation because of the behaviors of women? So then that adds extra pressure onto us, right? As I don't know about you two in your personal lives, but as a mom and a wife, there was an immense amount of pressure to be the good girl, make sure the kids are perfect, make sure I'm perfect, because that has a reflection on the man in the congregation.
I think for me, because I was single pretty much right up until, so I was the old maid that never got married. Couldn't quite be a trophy wife witness girl that was picked up and taken off the shelf and lived a good life. But no, like, I always had that pressure that if I don't act this way, if I don't look this way, if I don't speak this way, a man is not going to pick me. And then now, like, I'm just like, why does that have to be the end goal? Like, that was it for us. Like, we could maybe pioneer, but we had to get married in order to be a fulfilled Christian woman. Which,
yes, I remember that. Yes, being single, there was this Bethel elder who was interested in me, and I mean, guys, he was not cute, but I was just not interested. Okay, I was just not interested. And the elders were like, Jehovah handed a man to you on a silver platter. And then after I got this fellowship at my last meeting, I had been before a committee 3 times, and that's in my other stories. But the last thing the elder said to me was, no good man is going to want you after this. And that never left me. Wow. I'm telling you, I could give his name right now. It never left me. And then still to this day, I still hear his voice, like looking right at my eyes, like, no good man is going to want you after this. And then they went through all the brothers that I wasn't interested in because they had like position of power in the congregation, just the most horrific thoughts that they put into your head. And now I have a daughter. Like, I'm going to tell her, hey, honey, you do the exact same thing and behave the exact same way. No.
Well, I'll tell you what, Wendy, like, you're an excellent woman and an excellent man will want you, but that is irregardless, because as long as you want you, you're good.
And they don't teach I just want to go. No, thank you. Thank you. And this is why we're doing this. I think it's really important that I know so many women in my DMs, I'm sure you ladies are experiencing the exact same thing, that their self-worth is wrapped up in what they were told by an organization run by 8 older men.
Yes.
It blows my mind how millions of people's self-worth is wrapped up in something that is so completely twisted. I don't think these women realize the depth of this particular, like, the subtleties is what I'm passionate about in this organization.
I don't think a lot of us, even until later, you think about it, how wrapped up our self confidence
Yeah.
is in all of this, and how huge of a role it plays in how you feel about yourself, and looking for validation from men, because you're kind of trained that that's what you're supposed to do, right? That's what
Yeah.
the end goal is, to be the capable wife. And so really what that entails is getting your confidence from a man, picking you, choosing you, telling you, and it does a lot of damage.
Yeah, that whole
I think
pick me mentality. I mean, I hear from single women, I, I, it's terrible how women, not only is it slim pickings, but they're, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel,
not saying that
bad.
no one was interested in me. It was just like, okay, well, you're a little bit not quite my type either.
Exactly.
I was 28
But
when
at
I
the
got
same
married,
time,
and I was an old maid. I was an old maid, 28 when I got married, and it was like, what's wrong with you? And all my friends got married at like 19. I don't know. What do you want? It's true. I just don't like them. I don't know. I was just your typical young person. I don't know. But there was always that underlying message of what is wrong with you? What's wrong with you? How did you ladies unravel this? And what are some things that you can say to the women who are watching this, and I remember all three of us have been there, because I know your stories where we're sitting under our blankets watching Lloyd Evans or watching videos, and we're like, I'm so afraid of being found out. So when you think of yourself in that time period, number one, where you felt small and you believed that you should have been small, most importantly, what are some things you did to unravel that? And how can we help women who are us just a little bit ago?
So I think personally, like doing a lot of reading and research, particularly into like psychology and mental health, it's helped me a lot to sort of unravel the watchtower indoctrination. Where we're told we can't put ourselves first, the heart is treacherous, and we can't lean upon our own understanding. When in reality, we should be looking after ourselves first. We should be building ourselves up in order to help other people. And specifically, like I really want to help other women feel strong, feel empowered, and to be able to talk about their experiences, because we've all been through it. We don't need to keep silent anymore. And just keep talking, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't have all the words. Like for me, I've got ADHD, everything comes out in a big blah. And so sometimes it doesn't come out coherently, but it helps to get it out and off your chest. And especially if you can find other like-minded women that you can talk to who've been through it. I don't know, I guess that's my advice. Reading and talking.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And by the way, that's actually not, I mean, I don't live with you, but your content is amazing, and it's very well thought out, and it is very cohesive is the word. So yeah, I'm going to have to vote for no on what you just said about yourself, but that's besides the point. Lindsay, what do you think?
What was important for me is actually getting to really know myself. What do I really like? What are the things that really interest me? How do I really feel about certain things? I had to almost get to know myself, and it gave me a sense of peace knowing where these things that I had been feeling, where they came from. Where did they came from? The indoctrination, and unraveling that, really understanding where that came from, and then getting to know yourself has been just crucial.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of there's a misconception here that men and women, once you leave, if you make your own decisions, you're going to fall. But the interesting thing is, you might, but that's part of life. That's exactly what life is falling forward and making mistakes and learning from them and making choices. Interestingly, I just had a conversation with someone yesterday, because I've been having conversations knowing we were going to do this panel. And I had a conversation with this person, and, I said, well, and this person is PMO. And I said, so, well, for those who are new to the channel or new to leaving ExJw, PMO is physically in the religion, but you're mentally out, and everyone has their reason why. But I said to this person, what about your decisions that you're making? Like every decision that I made when I was on the inside was based on right from wrong, was based on doctrine, was based on being found out, was based on how it looked to other people. And now my decisions are based on healthy versus unhealthy, what's right for my family and society and humankind as a whole. And come to find out, I don't know about you ladies, but I find myself much more confident just in making decisions that I feel actually do work in harmony with that criteria. Does it work for my family? Not what is the other person who I never see other than ignoring them in the grocery store? What are they thinking?
Yeah.
You know? And real quickly, just going back to what the Apostle Paul said, this is just their interpretation of what Paul meant. If you research this scripture, which again, as a woman, I never gave myself permission to even read the talks that were organized for men to do. But when you research this particular scripture in 1 Corinthians, there are so many different conflicting bottom lines that they don't even really know what he actually meant. They're just like, you know what, that sounds good. Let's just. Or, how do you know what's true and what's not? Is also a question I have.
Even if he actually wrote it, like that's what I came across in my research, was like he may not have written this. It could have been added in later. So
excellent point. Yeah, that's a really good point. It could have been added later. We don't know.
We don't know, but we have 8 million people basing their life off of what we don't know. And then it begs the question, how much more do we not know? How much more have we been spoon-fed lies and overall just kind of interpretation? Remember, they're neither inspired nor infallible. So it's basically saying, I guess this is what they're saying.
This is my man's opinion about another man's opinion in a patriarchal society.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, I'm thankful though, because I think the younger generation, I think that they are not easily bamboozled. I am proud of the younger women that are up and coming, and they are not falling for it at all. You know?
I do remember sitting there in the meetings listening to things like this and like internally being like, how is this right? And then like now I'm just like, we can talk, we can say, no, this is not right, or this is not how I feel, because like I was saying earlier before we started recording, women, we don't have to be one of two ways. We don't have to be, you know, sitting down, being cute, being quiet, or being loud, hating men, whatever the narrative at the end of each spectrum is. We're all different. We have different facets. We can do everything all at once. We can do nothing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? I think I said it way more eloquently earlier.
No, don't second guess yourself. You said it beautifully, because what your response was to my statement before we recorded, where I said, I personally, I'm not a man hater at all. I love being in the passenger seat, and part of me is a little bit of a traditionalist, but that doesn't mean I want to be a doormat either. Yes. That doesn't mean I want to be, and for years I kept my abuse quiet, and my judicial committee, I got disfellowshipped. He got absolutely no judicial action whatsoever. And it's because it is a boys club. A lot of the PMO elders that I do speak to confirm that. It's a boys club. It is.
I had that in my
I didn't have an elder dad looking out for me. My dad wasn't an elder. I didn't have anybody like, oh, don't mess with her. It was more like, did you hear the latest with Wendy? She's in trouble again. Like that was this one.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem too is they try to make all of us the same, and we're not. We're just not. We don't need to be the same.
I never thought of it that way. I love that point. Yes. Like we're all the same. We deserve to be treated the same. And if you notice, and I actually fell prey to this, like they're all kind of Stepford wives. We all kind of fell into this mold of we talk the same, we look the same, we dress the same, we act the same, but we had no personal identity whatsoever.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing as well. Discovering that since leaving, like I don't have to be this like facade of a witness woman anymore. Like, what do I like? Like Lindsay was saying earlier, like, what do I like? I'm still figuring that out. But one of the things I like to do is not be silent.
I'm pretty sure that was never my personality ever. But here's the interesting thing. When it says, when I feel that it's not that I want to be silent, I'm also not the type to go crazy and like bring anger and hatred, and
Right.
that's not my thing either.
No.
But if there's something that I need to say in defense of others, that's like oxygen to me. When I see this other woman or this child or even this boy or this man, kind of the underdog in the congregation, I was the one who's like, I don't know why you're being mistreated like this. Like I feel like I need to say something, but it was always trust
But
the
even
brothers.
in saying that, like, you know, I think a big thing that the Watchtower and the way that it was all run was, and even like in society in general, men have sort of rebranded anger as acceptable for men, but for women it's unacceptable. And no, it's like part of the full spectrum of human emotions. Like we're allowed to experience it. Like, you know, in a moment I might do a TikTok video where I'm angry about something or I'm sad about something. Like it doesn't mean that I'm not in control or you know, I think the way that they sort of portray it is that men are more logical and women are emotional. But if a woman is angry, it's something that's not acceptable. And if a man's angry, well, yeah, that's totally fine. He's a man.
Right.
It's I think, you know, I would like to see people, particularly women, like embracing those sides of themselves and not fearing that they're being too much. Because you're allowed to be angry at some points, and like, yeah, don't make it your whole personality and don't hurt other people. But after all of this, like, we're allowed if we want. We don't even have to if we don't want.
That is such a beautiful point. You know, and men, I remember that talk at the convention when I talked about masculinity and femininity. Masculine and feminine is simply energy. Each man has a masculine and a feminine resource of energy, and each woman has both as well. It has nothing to do with gender. It's the same principle of a woman being outspoken is the same as a man who is showing his emotions as well. Like that's also kind of a religious faux pas as well, even though Jesus literally cried. So I find it to be very interesting. Well, they'll say it's okay to cry and it's okay to show emotion, but if you're a man, it's only in the event of, like, you know, someone dying or something like that.
Death.
Right. But for a woman, women with emotions in that organization, it always seems that means that they're headstrong. It means that they're proud. It means that they're deviating or something's always wrong with her. She's having a mental breakdown. That was always very disconcerting to me. I wish I could have been like you and sitting there and kind of twitching a little bit, but I didn't. I just got on medication, saw multiple therapists, sunk into depression, and continued to think there was something wrong with me. I wish I had the foresight that you did.
Well, I mean, like, it's only in one aspect. In other aspects, I was sitting there taking it all in and going like, oh yeah, I am not good enough. I should be doing more.
Wow.
So,
Lindsay, and if you think about it from a male perspective, like that's got to be hard to not only have to suppress all of your sexual energy, but now you have to suppress emotions as well. Just regular emotions of sadness, of feeling things, because that's feminine. And you don't want to do that because that's a female trait. So it really lends itself to some of the problems that escalate when you have all of those things just suppressed.
Right. Once I started unraveling, and this is one of the big questions that a lot of witnesses still have about this particular topic. This is one of the questions where it's like, if I was in and I couldn't find a rebuttal, I probably would have just said, I don't know, I'm not going to find out. I don't care. I'm just going to obey it.
Jehovah will fix it.
Leave it in Jehovah's hands.
I was in a Spanish congregation for a while, and like going back to what you're talking about, a 13-year-old boy taking the lead and directing people in field service. Well, I had sort of an older, like a guy that was my friend, leading the group. He was from Colombia, didn't know Auckland as well at the time, and he was like, let's go this, and this other sister, bless her, because like Kiwi women are a bit like, she'll be right, we'll just go ahead and do it, and we won't naturally always be submissive. And so she's like, I think it's better to do it this way. And he was like, no, I'm the brother, we do what I say. And like, I was like, our friendship is just about to end right here. But I was like, why don't you listen to her? Like, because literally what you're saying is it's going to waste gas. It's going to waste time. Like, if we do what she says or suggesting, we're going to go, you know, in a better pattern to work the doors, because it was a foreign language group. So we were driving there. It wasn't just regular door knocking. So yeah, I think
that was my experience too. I was in the Spanish congregation for a brief amount of time, just trying to find something that made me happy, finding where I could possibly belong. But I really did enjoy being in the Spanish congregation for a while. It was wonderful. But it was very much that way. And I was a single woman coming into the Spanish congregation, and it was a whole new world for me. It was like, oh my gosh, they think that I'm after their men, and they think that I'm just here to preach in a congregation. That's really my only goal. So yeah, I was kind of a strong woman. I did drive my own car, and I did have my own job, and I did know where I was going. And even that, being single in my earlier 20s, was like, who is this girl, and who does she think she is? Like, it was this overall, Wendy, you're too much. You're too tall. You're too shapely. Your heels are too tall. Too much makeup. But you're also not enough. You're also not enough.
And so I same experience, like too much but not enough at the same time. And also I was a tall woman, and in a Spanish congregation, everyone's like, up to here on me. And at the same time, like the men, like with the sort of Latin blood that they are, I'm like, girl, it's not me going after your husband. It's not me doing anything here. Yeah. Someone's just a bit too touchy-feely.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yep. That was why I didn't last very long, because I'm just like, listen, I have a voice, and I'm really trying not to use it. So, and I remember walking around terrified of saying the wrong word. I mean, even now, the elders have not come at me. No. And I wish they would. I find come on, tell me I'm wrong. Prove to me that I'm wrong. Because you're a man? No, just not.
I've also realized, just quickly, like one of the reasons I think that I went into Spanish was because it was fun. It was different from boring sort of Kiwi English repressive culture, and Spanish is fun. It was exciting. It was new. I love languages. And the people are lovely, like, you know, no disrespect to any of the people in the congregation.
Certainly.
Or Latinos worldwide.
Right.
Love it. But being in a foreign language group and picking up language is easy means you kind of like, you don't have to do the well thought out big answers that you would have to do in English. Like you can get away with the kids' answer of, you know, Jehovah, or Jehovah said it's bad. And everyone's like, wow, she just answered in Spanish. And you're like, yay.
It was the external validation you've been looking for, just
and not having to look deeply at the same stuff that's regurgitated to us all the time.
So the distraction basically is what you're describing. It was a distraction from finding out the realities. It was just kind of trying to keep yourself busy, trying to keep yourself, you know, it's kind of like a child in elementary school when they're not being challenged, they tend to act out, right? So when you're in this organization and you feel like you've mastered it, the only thing you can do is really work on yourself, because you're not enough. And then what are you going to do? You're going to, I don't know, let's find another hobby, but you're a single woman. So you can't reach out too much because you don't have a husband. So you can't go to Bethel. You got to get married, or you don't want to get married.
Foreign language.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to keep up with everything, and that idea of too much. You're not. I was considered too friendly. Oh, everything was flirting. By the way, I don't understand how everything is flirting, but everything is flirting. I was too nice, too flirty, too this, too that. I don't want to stumble someone. Blah blah blah. I mean, it was exhausting trying to not. You're not enough. You're too much. It's
Or if you did go into the ASL or any foreign language, it was to find a man. That was your motive.
But that was a huge thing. Yeah.
But it's also a bad thing. Like, well, I'm single. I'm old enough.
Right.
What's wrong?
Like, why can't I find someone out there if I want to?
And then I think as well, like on top of that, we end up by default trying to control our friends, almost like the Handmaid's Tale in pairs, like being like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing that, or oh, gotta rein you in. And then, you know, we're either our two roles basically is our pre-marriage, like virginal, pure, J-Dub, lovely sister, or then we get married and say we marry an elder, become an elder's wife, then we're suddenly like the controlling B word of the congregation, who's gossiping and doing this, that, and the other thing. And I've come to realize that that is just a response to the toxic environment that we're in. That this is, you know, everyone talks about how there's that one particular elder's wife that was always doing these things. That's her way of maintaining control. Like she's like, yes, I'm finally at the top, or whatever it may be. And how she can control it is by controlling the flow of information that other people in the congregation get about certain people, and, you know, things like that.
Wow. That is
I still haven't fully formed that.
Oh, it is such an excellent point. And to that sister in the congregation who is also very well put together, with the perfect husband, with the perfect kids, the perfect house, the one who always is well dressed, she's early at the meetings. I remember looking at that woman and saying, what am I doing wrong where I cannot measure up? And you're right. We control what we can. And so many people control their images. Some people try and control other people. But for that sister, and there's one in every hall, it is a way to try and control something that cannot be controlled.
Yeah.
I think we all did that in our own way.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's also fake.
Instagram.
It's very fake.
Instagram queen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I highly filtered, highly curated. Like I wanted everyone to see that, yes, I was good. I was going to this convention. I had a boyfriend. I was doing this. I was doing that. And like, it's pretty, it's fun, it's nice. And so now, like, you know, my Instagram, I've gone private on my personal Instagram, and it is just things in the moment. And I barely share all that much anymore. Whereas before it was like constant validation that, okay, I'm doing okay. But no.
No, I love that you said that, because I too was very, very public with my personal life, my kids' lives on social media before. And I did. It just came from wanting acceptance, wanting belonging, wanting to feel like I was part of something, because I felt like I just kind of got lost in the organization. And now, and I want to hear your ladies' opinions on this, that since leaving, I feel like I'm actually anxiety, body pains, depression. Once you deconstruct, and I do highly suggest getting into counseling for anybody deconstructing, I'm a much more patient person. I'm much more observant. I'm less about myself and more, I guess, Christ-like. I strive to be by their description of Christ. And I feel such empathy. That's why I never want to forget where I came from in there. I never want to forget that exhausted woman who was going through a committee meeting. I never want to forget that, because now I feel like I could sit in the pain with other people. Would you agree? How has your personality changed since then and now? Both of you.
I'll let Lindsay go, because I feel like I've just spoken so much, and then I'll go.
I feel I'm much more authentic than I was. I always tried to be a good girl. When I was in, you know, the congregation, I wanted to be I really did want to be a good witness. So I tried my best to be perfect. And that is damaging too, because you're trying for something that's unattainable. You're never going to reach perfection. And even that sister, just to touch on the point, Wendy, that you made, even that sister that it looks like she has it all together. My mom was that sister in the hall. We were all dressed perfectly. We would all sit there and be quiet. We knew not to make a sound. But you know what? Right before the meeting at home, it was a mess. It was a mess. It was toxic. There was abuse, which is for another day. But there were a whole lot of things going on behind the scenes, behind that veil of flawlessness and perfection.
You two could take over the world. Holy moly. Okay, Michelle, your turn.
I think for me, like, I struggled with anxiety so much. And I think as well, I've got a type of mild agoraphobia that I hadn't recognized earlier, and that manifested in certain ways where I felt that I needed to control the environment that I was in. So, you know, if you don't like being out in public with people, and that's our main form of witnessing. I've got to make sure that I have a safe person with me, or else I can't go at all, sort of thing, really affects you when you don't realize why it's affecting you. Riddled with anxiety, depression, like no idea why I was feeling this way or anything like that. Now I'm just like, okay, I don't need to go out anywhere if I don't want to, but if I want to, I need to push myself, and it needs to be for me, not because some 8 old men in New York are telling me that I have to get 50 hours of witnessing time. Definitely trying to find who I am authentically and live kindly, like with myself, with others, and with the environment. Like that's absolutely all I'm trying to do. Whether or not anyone else agrees with me, I don't care. Like I'm just like, that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. I'm doing what I want to do to be happy.
And you'll find that many probably do agree with you. We are programmed that the rest of the world does not. That's what we were programmed to think. And for me, when I left meetings, and even when I was super preemie, meetings and conventions, even smallest of gatherings, exhausted me and depleted me in my energy. I have since stepped into my spiritual side, which has nothing to do with religion. I have stepped into I've discovered I am a highly sensitive person, intuitive empath. And what that means is that I am a sponge for people's energies. I can hear that person opening the candy wrapper. I can hear the baby crying. I can hear the person snoring on the other side of the Kingdom Hall, and the lights are bright. And then 20 minutes in, I can't focus on anything. I am exhausted. It would take me about a day or two just to recover from one meeting, only to go 2 days later to do it over again. So I've then stepped into that. Self-care is a must for me. It is a priority. It is a necessity. I can't give myself to anyone if I don't give myself to me first. Exactly. And I think that is one of the most important message that I would like to give to women everywhere, whatever your personality type, empath or not, intuitive or not, highly sensitive or not. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anyone, because it's not selfish. You're programmed to think it's selfish. It's a necessity. That's what I've stepped into, and everything else comes secondary. Everything.
I think I before, when I was a witness, I was so busy, like, I think maybe I only had Monday night to myself, and that would be it. Like, I was working full time. We had meetings twice a week. I obviously was depressed and had anxiety, so kept myself busy and distracted, either with field service, with friends, out with friends, doing whatever, and like organizing things all the time to keep myself busy. And then 2020 happened, pandemic, lockdowns. I live alone. I was alone. No one in my congregation really looked out for me. They all looked out for other pioneers and other elders and elders' wives, and forget about little old Michelle by herself. So I was what you would call an orphan in the truth for the last 15 years, because my mum left not long after I got baptized at 19. And I've never had anyone care for me, ever, in the way that you'd see them on the platforms, you'd see them at the meetings, even just the families, like looking out for each other. So yeah, 2020 happened, and I realized through a series of awesome events that it wasn't the truth. But I found therapy TikTok, and that's helped immensely. Like, people knock TikTok for being like, oh, it's all dancing and teenagers. No, it's not. Like, I've learned how to clean my washing machine.
I know, right?
It's insane.
Yeah.
if you hit the right algorithm.
Going back to being silent, the fact that you were dealing with that silently was installed. Because if you spoke out about the things that you were dealing with, number one, I can almost guarantee you they would have said that's a spiritual problem.
So I was just going to say, I did eventually, just before I found out that, it wasn't the truth. I was suicidal, and I ended up reaching out to my doctor, and here in New Zealand, through the healthcare system, I was able to get 4 free sessions with a counsellor. And I ended up, I think, because after our first lockdown, they let us do cart witnessing again before stopping it worldwide. So I was on the carts with a couple of sisters, and I mentioned to them, I've just been to a therapist, and they were like, one of them was amazing, and she was very nice, And I actually, even that, I'm talking it up because really all she said was like, oh, it's good that you're getting help. Whereas the other sister was like, have you looked at your personal study? I mean, really, have you? Have you prayed harder to Jehovah? And that is your stock standard response if you do speak up about anything is, have you looked at your personal study and have you prayed? Like, duh.
I didn't think of that.
I'm cured. In 2016, I was hospitalized for a panic attack. I had no idea what they were. I'd only heard about them. And first thing I asked my husband at the time in the ER was, are we going to have to tell the brothers about this? I was more concerned about what the elders thought about my intrusive thoughts due to anxiety and sadness than I was worrying about how I was going to heal and take care of my toddlers who were missing mommy at that time. That was my main concern. And I know other women are feeling this way. They just don't talk about it. This is where the women are to keep silent spills into our everyday lives of, I can't talk about it because if I'm struggling with my emotional health, my husband's going to suffer. My kids are going to be looked down. No one's going to invite them out. And sure, any active Jehovah's Witness, if you want to come at us and say that's not true, don't deny us our experiences, because I've experienced that. Clearly, you ladies have experienced something similar. So this whole keep silent thing has to stop. And that is particularly why I wanted to do this. And I wanted to have you ladies on here on this topic.
I think it's been really good. Thank you.
Yes.
So we can conclude. I just said conclude.
What's a prayer?
With a prayer? Oh,
I cover my head.
So Lindsay and Michelle, I want to thank you guys so much for being on this. And if to the ladies or the men or the young girls, teenagers, whatever you are in our audience, if you want to reach out to Lindsay and to Michelle, their is in the description box, and we are here for you forever you want to talk about. And as always, it is always anonymous. If you need to remain anonymous reaching out to us on social media, we will always honor and respect that, because we have always been through that before. I remember having to be anonymous, and I remember being like, what if they reveal my identity? I laugh now, but there is no panic like waking up from that organization.
Oh my gosh.
Lindsay, I remember talking to you and how you were still kind of on the cusp of not being out. I remember that. Yeah. And now, girl, I see you all over now. And I'm
all like, over. I have no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to end this now, and we're going to have another women's panel in the future. Would love to have you on. And if you are in the audience watching this and you would like to speak about something on the women's panel, please email me, wendyrenee@gmail.com, and we would love to have you on. Ladies, it has been such an honor. And if there's anything else you want to say, let's get the topic up and we'll all reconvene.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.
All right. We'll see you guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to be on one of our panels, be sure to email me, wendyrenee@gmail.com. Or if you want to get on our show and tell your story, please know that your story is so significant, because I can guarantee you that there is someone in our audience whose story resonates with yours. There is strength in our stories that we tell each other. And with every day that passes by, more and more people are getting the courage to speak out. Sometimes all it takes is just one person. Email me at wendyrenee@gmail.com, or you can go to wendyrenee.com and hit the share your story tab. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.